Hello students, good morning everyone. So today we are going to discuss about management as a profession. So in the previous videos of management you have done the concept of management, self-explanatory part. Also along with that we have also covered management as science as well as management as an art. So now we are going to do management as a profession, the different levels of management and the link of the concept of administration with management. So here you on your screen you can see the different professionals like a house painter, trainer, waiter, chef, nurse, baker, seller, cleaning women, photographer, hairdresser, plumber, reporter, housemaid, doctor, videographer and many more. Before proceeding with the topic, let me first introduce you with the learning objectives of this chapter. Enact strategy including management of contingencies, emergent strategies and other modifications to existing plans. Effective plan, prepare and execute negotiations. Use various processes and tools for bargaining, negotiating and resolving disputes. Apply human resource principles and law to effectively recruit, select, train and retain employees. Conduct job analysis and apply performance appraisal, compensation, identify, assess and develop appropriate responses to operational risks. Identify, plan, budget and initiate projects and monitor project performance. Develop a supply distribution, environmental assessment and a supply chain strategic plan. Lead, facilitate and contribute to effective work groups and teams. Manage dispersed work groups, that is virtual teams. Now, as per the outline of this chapter, we have covered so far the definitions of management, features of management, traditional and modern approach of management, importance of management, management as a science, management as an art. So now the three topics which we are left with, we are going to cover those topics. First is management as a profession, levels of management, administration and management. In this topic we are going to cover the following key terms. First is profession, then occupation, vocation, career, job, work, skill set, frontline management and middle management. So as you can see in the diagram, we have four main parameters. First is customer, then we have financial dependence which leads to the growth, then internal process, afterwards vision and mission of your organizational objectives, the environment, the social surroundings in which your organization is prevailing, and above all these contribute to inward and outward environment, internal and external environment in which your organization prevails. Now first of all, let us understand about the two terms, profession and occupation. What is the difference between profession and occupation? A lawyer, a teacher, architect, accountant, director, engineer, they all are professionals. We need a degree to work in these areas. A profession requires a degree or completed studies at a university or other institution of higher education. It involves extensive training and special knowledge. Next we have occupation. An occupation is the job you are paid to do. It is the way you earn a living. Think of it as the activity that occupies your time and from which you receive money for doing it. Sometimes our profession and occupation are same, but sometimes our profession and occupation are different because we earn money from some other activity but we have obtained degree for a different activity. For example, I studied teaching at university and I am a teacher right now. My profession and my occupation are the same. Or if I study teaching at the university, but I am an actor right now, my profession is teacher, though my occupation or my job right now is actor. I hope you have understood the difference between a profession and an occupation. Now, the next term is career. The career is an individual's metaphorical journey through learning, work, and other aspects of life. We have a different set of careers. For example, logistics, transportation, heavy machines, animal science, food processing, horticulture, natural resources. In business management, you can even excel in accounting, finance, human resources, advertising, PR services, sales, marketing, right? So one needs to work in these fields. That person also includes the basic business responsibilities, which give rise to one particular learning process, a journey that is known as career. Now, the next very important term is job. So, a job is the work which you do to earn money. For example, working at a gas station, any task or working done on one specific project. For example, cleaning the bathroom, or another example can be a contractor agreeing to redo a bathroom. Other than that, we can have a marketing coordinator, a medical assistant, web designer, dog trainer, president of sales, nursing assistant, project manager, librarian, and many more. Next is the define of work. An activity involving mental or physical efforts done in order to achieve a purpose or result. So every activity in which your result is associated with is known as work. For example, pushing a car horizontally from wrist, shooting a bullet, the powder where does the work, walking upstairs, sawing a log. And if we use word in our daily language, then we can also take the example like in this particular pic, he was tired after a day's work in the fields. Now, the next is vocation. Vocation is defined as a call to do something, the inner urge, especially regarding your religious work. The woman's desire to become a nun is an example of vocation. You see all around you the different brahmacharis, the different sannyasis, the different mahatmas who have left their activities relating to household activities. They are relieved and they are only involved in religious works. So they are doing what? They are in vocation. Vocation means one's calling or profession. The hard work done by charity worker accepting little or no money is an example of a vocation. So generally we have three types of vocation. One is priesthood, other is religious life, and third is married life. So you must be astonished this time. Married life is also regarded as a vocation because you are in a call to be in a married life and do whatever to be happy and to attain sustenance in your married life. So professions are some here, like you have some professions which are very least trusted. Politicians, government ministers, advertising executives, clergy, priests, bankers. So you sometimes have very less trust on these particular type of professions. You can say 2 among 3 people say that politicians are the least trusted profession and government ministers are not trustworthy. So this you can consider here the pole of the government. That government considers it like these professions are of great demand, but the people feel that these professions are least trusted professions as people do not have faith in their workings and atmosphere in which they make other people survive. So Let us now discuss about the different professions. You can see here a dictionary of profession is there. A full professions list right from the alphabet A till the alphabet Z. Say accountant, baker, cashier, dentist, engineer, a fashion designer, a general manager, a hairstylist, an IT manager, a journalist, a kindergarten teacher, lawyer, musician, nurse, office clerk, photographer, quality assurance manager, robotics engineer, shop salesperson, truck driver, Uber driver, veterinarian, web developer, X-ray operator, yoga instructor, a zoologist. So we have a number of professions associated with different alphabets. Other than that, there are different professional institutes which help you to become a professional. Like with alphabet A, it is accountant, and for that you have an institute, a professional institute which is known as ICAI, that is Institute of Chartered Accountants, right? For marketing, you have PIMS, that is Panache Internet Marketing School. Then for science departments, we have different institutes, government institutes, Biotechnica, Year Bioresource, right? We have different institutes who are providing professionals for science and technology unit. In the words of Hodge and Johnson, profession is a vocation requiring some significant body of knowledge that is applied with high degree of consistency in the service of some relevant segment of society. In the words of A.S. Horn, an occupation especially on requiring advanced education and special training. Profession is which we get from college, university preparation. An occupation is on the job, training schools, community, college preparation. Profession is for which you require 4 or more years, but for occupation your preparation time is quite short. For a profession you must have a certain set of values, beliefs, ethics, the code of ethics, and for an occupation it's not necessary that you always be in a hold of values, beliefs, ethics. For a profession, your commitment is must, and in an occupation, your personal ID and commitment, if doesn't exist, then it does not harm. Profession is independent, it's autonomous, but an occupation is always supervised by others. Profession is stability in work. Occupations change by changing your jobs. In a profession, you are accountable individually, but in an occupation, you are accountable with your employer only. Now, I'll here add the 10 people who became widely successful after facing rejection. Milton Hershey, Theodore Geisel, Albert Einstein, Benjamin Franklin, Stephen Kay, Oprah Winfrey, Thomas Edison, Michael Jordan, and your very well known Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. So they are those successful persons who have faced a great rejection but are now very renowned professionals. Another question that arises regarding nature of management is whether management can be regarded as a profession or not. To determine this, we must understand the meaning and special attributes of profession. The dictionary meaning of profession is a calling in which one professes to have acquired specialized knowledge. Like a teacher needs a particular degree, a doctor must be a MBBS or MD, right? For a lawyer, you must have done BA, LLB, LLM. So which is used either in instructing, guiding, or advising others. Profession has been defined in a variety of meanings by different authors. In the broad sense, profession is any occupation by which a person earns a livelihood. that it makes you earn money. In the restricted sense, profession includes the three learned professions, that is theology, law and medicine. But in real sense, the term professions falls in between the two extremes only. Now, the various attributes of a profession or the various characteristics of a profession. According to Professor Dalton E. McFarland, he lays down the following criteria or the special attributes in a profession. First of all, existence of a body of specialized knowledge, like obtaining a particular degree. Then formalized methods of acquiring training and experience. Suppose you take an example of a hardware engineer. He has enough training and experience in dealing with electronic gadgets. Establishment of representative organization with professionalism as its goal. The formation of ethical codes for the guidance of conduct. Okay, here we can take one more example, right? So these days, as you all know, in COVID-19, the pandemic, the criteria is that you cannot go anywhere after 8 p.m., right? And moreover, all the shops, all the workplaces, they get shut down by the evening about 7 to 8 p.m. So this is a kind of ethical code which you have to follow in the unlock procedure. Like no opening of gym areas, no opening of theatres, cinema houses, and every time you have to wear a mask, right, while you are outside. So if you are not well, you should be self-quarantined. So what are these? These are some ethical codes which you have to follow. And above all, charging of fees. Suppose you take tuitions. Simple example. You pay fees. Tutor being a professional, he is charging fees, right? So what we can conclude here, what are the various attributes? One is passion. He must be a compassionate one. Patience. Communicative. Professional should be a creative one. Full of humor. Knowledgeable. Should be positive. Be motivational and must be flexible. Now, when we apply the above discussed attributes to ascertain the status of management as a profession, we can conclude the various features. First is body of specialized knowledge and techniques. When applied to management, it has an organized body of knowledge built up by management practitioners, thinkers and philosophers over the period of years. In this sense, we can safely say that modern management is certainly a profession. A.P.M. Fleming has rightly remarked that modern management has a technique quite apart from the technology of the particular works concerned. You can take here the example of a healthcare hospital administrator. He hires, supervises, administrates the managers and the staff. He manages the facilities related with finance. He oversees budgeting. He establishes goals and strategies. So this is what a healthcare professional do his practice. Now the next is formalized methods of acquiring training and experience. The management science today is fully equipped with formalized methods of acquiring the body of knowledge in theory and practice. To impart management, education and training, there are a large number of formal institutes in various countries including India. Several tools of management such as business psychology, business law, statistics, data processing, operations research and cost accounting, etc. have been developed. The business houses today prefer to employ those managerial personnel who have obtained a professional degree in management from some recognized institutes. Next is establishment of professional associations. Professional management associations are being established in most of the countries. For what? To regulate the behavior of their members, to create a code of conduct for guiding the activities of the profession, to promote and build up the image of management as a profession, For example, in India, there is AIMA with many local associations affiliated to it. All India Management Association. And we also know about AIMA, right? And under which all the hospitals are working. Here we can also take the example of ADAA, that is American Dental Assistants Association. The main function of every association which is comprised of professionals is to manage and coordinate the research work in the various areas of management. It is, however, true that norms of managerial behavior have not yet been established and we do not have uniform methods of entry. For example, IIM Institute. It is an institute aimed at teaching the knowledge of management. Lastly, the admission to these institutes is through an examination. AIMA aims at taking your abilities to a higher degree. They provide you with an executive MBA courses. There are number of organizations like AIMA, All India Management Association, which regulates the activities of their manager members. However, there is no compulsion to be a member of any of these organizations for which you can be called as a manager. Next is Code of Conduct. That is the rules and regulations, the responsibility, the training, the new innovative ideas, the ethics, trust in between the employer and employee, the relationship with customers, a group work, a teamwork, and ultimately the achievement of goals. Members of a profession have to abide by the code of conduct. Very simple example. So if you are a lawyer, you should wear a black coat while you are practicing, right? If you are working in a laboratory, you should wear a white coat. If you are a doctor, you should wear a white coat. If you are an engineer, then you should wear a helmet, right? A helmet of yellow color. If you are a JE, then yellow color. If you are a supervisor engineer, then a white color. So in that way, there are certain code of conducts. For if you talk about the policemen, so they wear a khaki uniform. So in this way, there are certain rules and regulations, norms of honesty, integrity, and professional morality. So whenever a person comes into a profession, like if we talk about if we talk about the Prime Minister, whenever he holds his duty, he starts holding his duty as a Prime Minister, he first takes an oath that he will serve the country, right? So he is abide by certain rules and regulations, norms of honesty, integrity, and professional morality. In the traditional professions such as law and medicine, there exists standard code of conduct. But in the sphere of management, there exists no uniform code of conduct. In management, you can shape yourself according to the situations. There are no restrictions of licensing on the entry of management profession, and judged from these standpoint, management cannot be regarded as a profession. Example of different priorities in a professional life: individual's health, physiological pathways, genetic factors, individual risk factors, social relationships, living conditions, neighborhoods, society, institutions, economic policies, business environment. So a professional has to decide among all which is his priority, for which he has to work very hard. Now, priority of service over economic considerations. A professional's priority is always the service of mankind. Unlike an ordinary occupation or trade, a profession, though a source of livelihood, involves the application of expert knowledge for the service of society. Okay, let me take an example of a teacher here. A teacher is not only should that he or she simply gives the lecture and leaves the class. He must be full of moral values so that he or she can make others learn the same moral values when applied to the class students, and his duty is to serve the students in the best possible manner. When applied to management, although there exists no code of conduct, yet we find that an increasing emphasis is being put on the social responsibilities of managers. Management aims at providing maximum efficiency at the lowest cost so as to serve the interests of employers, workers, consumers, society, and the nation at large. For example, a doctor earns his livelihood from his profession of medicine, but service to society is uppermost in his mind. You all can observe these days, like everyone was somehow relaxed in the period of lockdown, but the team of doctors, policemen, the authorities, they are making endless efforts for the service. Being a professional, they are providing their best. Now, what a manager do? What does a manager do? Manager are the persons who are in charge of the employees, and they provide them facilities, and in reciprocation the employees work for manager. As a manager, your job is to plan, to promote the daily schedule of employees, the business, interview, hire and coordinate employees, create and maintain budgets, coordinate with and report to the senior management in the company, like to plan, to monitor goals, organize and implement, direct employees, evaluate goals, evaluate employees and resources, and maintain a balance in between the organization. Now we'll discuss about the different criteria or the standards which are required for evaluating management as a profession, that if he or she is a professional or not. First of all, the person should have knowledge, a particular degree, right? A competitive application, social responsibility, self-control and community action, existence of the body of specialized knowledge or technique, formalized method of acquiring training and experience, the establishment of a representative organization with professionalization as its goal, formation of the ethical code for the guidance of conduct, the charging fees based on services with due regard for the priority of services over the desire for monetary reward. Now, here we can conclude that whether management is a profession or not. So, from the above discussion, it just showed that management in some respect qualify as a profession, but it does not have certain features which generally constitute a recognized profession. The saying is that managers are born and not made is no longer valid in the present days. So first of all, let us take that managers are born. Good managers selected by nature, since a person was born with characteristics which make one to become a good manager. Charisma, that is a special quality or a trait, is a quality which is generated from inside a person, which is the main factor to make anyone to become a good manager. Although Peter F. Drucker, the greatest exponent of management theory and practice, is of the view no greater damage could be done to our economy or to our society than attempt to professionalize management by licensing managers or by limiting access to management to people with a special academic degree. That is, he was in a favor of professionalized managers, like by introducing the degree of MBA, that is Management, Masters of Business Administration. We can also say managers are made. Nobody is born with perfect made skills. Every person has to work for acquiring skills. Every day, manager has to learn new things from unrealistic world. Only experiences can play a role in the life of a manager. Now our next main part, that is 3 levels of management: top managers, middle managers, first line managers, non-manager. And we also have white collar employees and then blue collar employees. So white collar employees means the employees at the top level, right? So here you can say the managers of top and middle level, they can be regarded as white collar employees because they have to take decisions. And blue collar employees are the workers, the foremen, supervisors, the factory workers, which are there to produce or to generate more and more production to increase the sales turnover. Now, why is there need to differentiate management? Why we can't take management as a whole? Like if we have a number of 100 employees, why can't we regard them as a single management system? Why there is a need for segregation as top, middle or lower level? So when looking at different levels of management from a vertical frame, the value of separating management this way essentially allows different amounts of scope. The expression "seeing the forest for the trees" is a particularly useful anecdote for the purpose of the upper managerial teams. Objective at the top of the hierarchy is to consider mid and long-term strategy for the organization at large. Middle managers usually take a more specific aspect of this larger strategy and ensure a more detailed implementation. Managers on the front line focus almost exclusively on effective execution and are often much more short-term oriented. This allows each class of management to narrow their focus enough for the work to actually be manageable. Now, you can see we have a number of companies listed here: Lenovo, Samsung, PepsiCo, HP, Intel, Cisco, Coca-Cola, Walmart, 3M, Unilever, Nestle, Johnson & Johnson, Nokia, right? We have a number of companies. And every company have 3 sets of management: top level management, middle level and operational level. In top level management, right, comes CEO, Chief Executive Officer, then the Managing Director, afterwards the General Manager, then President and then Vice President. To till Vice President we have top level scenario. Then after that we have Assistant Manager, Managers and Senior Managers. They all are covered in middle level management. And then come the employees, foremen, supervisors, gate workers, or you can say the employees who are working at lower level, that is operational levels, the persons who deal with handling of machines, tools and equipments. Now we will talk about each level management in detail. First of all, the top level management, core characteristics. So what are the features? High level managers tend to have a substantial amount of experience, ideally across a wide variety of functions. Many high level managers become part of an executive team by mastering their functional disciplines across various roles, becoming the CEO, Chief Operations Officer, CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. CM is also used for medical term, that is Chief Medical Officer. Top management teams are also often industry experts, having a close association with the long-term trajectory of the businesses they operate in. They often benefit from being charismatic, powerful communicator with a strong sense of accountability, confidence, integrity and a comfort with risk. Now the responsibilities of top team. The primary role of the executive team or the top level managers is to look at the organization as a whole and derive broad strategic plans. Company policies, substantial financial investments, strategic alliances, discussions with the board, stakeholder management, and other top level managerial tasks are often high risk, high return decision-making initiatives taken by the top management. Top-level management roles are therefore often high-stress and high-influence roles within the organization. Now, the levels of management in the organization structure. So we have three sets. First is top management, that is known as executives. Then we have middle management, and last is supervisory management. In the top management, we cover managing director or the CEO, that is chief executive officer. Then senior executives, heads of different departments, assistant divisional managers, departmental heads, assistant departmental heads, superintendents, journal foremen, first line supervisors, right? And depending upon the different departments, we have different employees, operators and clerks working at the front line management. Now comes the next type of management, that is middle management. Most organizations have three management levels: first level, middle level and top level managers. These managers are classified according to a hierarchy of authority and perform different tasks. In many organizations, the number of managers in each level gives the organization a pyramid structure, that is a triangle shaped structure. Middle management is in the intermediate leadership level of a hierarchical organization, being subordinate to the senior management but above the lowest levels of operational staff. For example, operational supervisors may be considered middle management. They may also be categorized as non-management staff, depending upon the policy of the particular organization. Middle level managers can include journal managers, branch managers and department managers. These managers are accountable and answerable to the top level for their department's function. They devote more time to the organizational and directional functions than the upper management. For example, sales managers develop a new advertising campaign for one of the company's products in order to achieve 10% sales growth in next year. So this is one kind of example which middle management do. Executing organizational plans in conformance with the company's policies and objectives of the top management. A middle manager defines and discusses information and policies from top to lower management. Most important, a middle manager inspires and provides guidance to lower level managers to assist them in performance improvement and accomplishment of business objectives. Middle managers may also communicate upward by offering suggestions and feedbacks to top managers. Because middle managers are more involved in the day-to-day workings of the company, they can provide valuable information to top managers that will help them improve the organization view. Middle management functions. Middle managers' roles may include several tasks depending on their department. Some of their functions are designing and implementing effective group work and information system, defining and monitoring group level performance indicators, diagnosing and resolving problems within and among different work groups, designing and implementing reward systems, supporting cooperative behavior, reporting performance statistics and recommending strategic changes. Now comes the third level, that is frontline management or lower level management. Frontline management balances functional expertise with strong interpersonal skills to optimize specific operational processes. Under this perspective, managers are responsible for different degrees of organizational scope, which can be visualized as having responsibility over a larger volume of processes and people. When illustrating this concept of frontline management, the lower level managers are at the bottom of the chart. They often shaped something like a pyramid, while the executives are at the top. Moreover, at the front line, managers are often highly skilled and even functional specialists. A frontline manager is best positioned when they focus on controlling and directing specific employees. Think in terms of supervisors, team leaders, line managers, and project managers. So you can see on your screen, a frontline manager can be associated with an auditor. He must be a top performer. He can be a mentor. He can be a firefighter, articulator, micromanager, a controller, and can act as a coach also. Now comes the next keyword, that is skill sets. A frontline manager needs to have two distinctive skill sets. The first one, the interpersonal skills to manage people as well as the technical experts to be among the frontline actively executing functional tasks. As a result, frontline managers are often highly valuable team members with the versatility of contribute in various ways. So in 2020, the World Economic Forum says that a manager must be comprised of the different skill sets like complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management, coordinating with others, teamwork, communication, emotional intelligence, judgment and decision making, service orientation, negotiation, and the last is cognitive flexibility. Now comes the responsibilities of frontline management. First responsibility is the expertise required to do whatever it is they are managing. For example, if we are talking about an accounting manager, they must be able to balance the books and understand enough of everyone's specific function to fill the gaps. If it is a frontline manager on an automobile manufacturing facility, the manager should be aware of how to run most of the machines and how to assess the productivity. On the managerial side, frontline managers are tasked with hiring, assessing performance, providing feedback, delegating functional tasks, identifying gaps, maximizing efficiency, scheduling, and aligning of teams. So here we can also take the example of a very company which is very renowned and which is known to everyone, that is Google. So here we have four set of managers. First, corporate level general managers, which comprises of CEO, that is Chief Executive Officer. Then business level general managers, which comprises of different divisions. Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, 4 and so on. Then comes the functional managers, like for Department of Research and Development, Production, Marketing, Sales. Then comes frontline managers, that is a group or a team of different employees, workers and the gate hirers. Now comes the concept of administration. Administration refers to the process of running an organization, office or business. Basically, administration means office work. This includes creating rules and regulations, making of decisions, management of operations, creating organization of staff, employees, people to direct activities towards achieving a common goal or objective. An example of administration is the President of the United States and the individuals he appoints to support him. Another example of administration is the work of the principal in school, managing the faculty, the staff, and executing the rules of the school system. Now we will talk about the different types of administration. Generally, there are three types of administration in an organization: a company, school, and government, and every public administration, which we will discuss in the coming slides. So here you can see a day in the life of an administrator. He must be fully equipped with computer and software skills. He must be clear, friendly verbal, and a good written communicator. He must be extreme attentive towards details. He should manage schedules for co-workers and office events, and moreover he earns a good salary. Now, first type, that is authoritative administration. Authoritative means do what I say. There is no scope of listening to others and then coming to a consensus. You all have learned about history, and history you know about the concept of dictatorship of Hitler. So authoritative administration is a style which resembles dictatorship. Here, administrator imposes his opinion and is rigid. Subordinates are suppressed and frightened. Feeling and sentiments of others are not cared. Focus is on control and discipline only. Principle is that boss is always right. No sharing and no consultations. Subordinates can ask question the opinion of the administrator. Subordinates are bound to follow the orders. There is no sympathy or relaxation to subordinates. Decisions are made and imposed by the administrator himself. Now, there are few advantages of authoritative administration. Institutions reflect order, discipline, compliance of rules and regulations. Work is completed without delay. Only the opinion of the experts is implied. All the assignments are carried rapidly. It encourages working relationship and it is result oriented. Now comes the disadvantages of authoritative administrations. It discourages free thoughts, creativity. Authoritative administration damages human esteem and ego. It creates negative culture of flattering. It hinders or obstacles the way to experiment innovation. Subordinates face great loss for non-compliance with the rules and regulations. It reduces commitment and enthusiasm, that is energy level get down. Staff is divided and is victimized by conspiracies. There is trust deficit between boss and the employees, and it promotes a culture that is yes sir. And this is a culture which is nowadays called professionalism. We can also take the example of Apple company. Apple was a successful company from 1976 to 1985. Before it almost failed in the mid-90s, then it becomes enormously successful again, precisely because it faltered. In other words, Apple had a vision. Apple lost its vision. Apple regained its vision, and that's a very rare case. In the mid-1990s, Gateway, Microsoft, Sun Microsystems, and other companies reportedly zeroed in on Apple as an acquisition target. Years later, many of those brands disappeared, but Apple survived. Apple survived because Steve Jobs learned how to adapt. He became a democratic, participative leader. Jobs started out as a charismatic, laissez-faire leader, and Apple soared. Then he became an autocratic leader, and the Apple's board of directors requested his resignation. When he returned to Apple more than 10 years later, Jobs combined several leadership styles and added democratic, participative leadership in his repertoire. He hired other experienced leaders and entrusted them to excel. Jobs encouraged his lead designer, Jonathan Ive, then he mentored manufacturing expert Tim Cook, now the CEO. He let them make key decisions. So that's why Apple survived, because they take a mix of different administration styles under a single roof and apply them according to the situations. Next comes democratic administrations. Democracy is government of the people, for the people, and by the people. Like democratic administration is the administrations which we feel in India. People choose their representative, and then that representative works for the welfare of the people. He takes the advice of the people somehow to help and to guide him. Democratic administration is opposite to authoritative style. There is sharing and cooperation. Administrator is sympathetic and shows flexibility. Respect and importance is given to subordinates. Feeling and sentiments of others are cared. There is freedom of expression and thought. All members participate in decision making. The responsibility of achieving the task is collective. All members feel responsible for achieving targets. Decisions are collectively made and members work hard to achieve objectives. It paves the way for alternative leadership by delegating powers. It promotes creative environment which to progress and self-control. Now, the disadvantages of democratic leadership. Every person gives more importance to his ideas and ignores the opinion of experts. It promotes negative criticism. Every person does not possess sound thinking judgment. Members of staff incline towards opinion which serve their own interest. There is need to suppress vice strictly. Next type of administration is laissez-faire, which means let people do what they wish. Administrators do not interfere in the matters. They show lack of interest and a sense of responsibility. Subordinates enjoy limitless freedom. Subordinates do not follow the rules and guidelines. Focus is on status quo. Decisions are made without involving the leadership. Staff members work according to their will. What are the different advantages of laissez-faire style? That it favors institutions or organizations with professional members who are responsible, expert, and experienced. It is useful for organizations having business partnership. Then comes the disadvantages. Institutions reflect chaos, disorder, anarchy, and lack of discipline. Quality is declined. There is decline in norms, standards, and professionalism. Members do not follow the guidelines. It promotes pressure group which negatively influence the head of administration. So we have three types of administration. First is autocratic. That is, do what I say. Do this. Do this. Then we have laissez-faire. Do this or that as you see fit. That is, do whatever you want to do. Then is democratic, that what should you do, what I do, you should tell me. So, democratic is reciprocating, then do it what I want to do with you. So, this was all about the chapter of management. We have completed our chapter. This was the last concepts of management. Read your chapter thoroughly. Follow the given links for more clarity of your concepts. It will help you to get more knowledge about the concept of management. Answer the following questions. Why is management considered as an emerging profession? Describe the different levels of management. Third question, what is administration? How is it different from management? Next, we have, how do you manage stress among your team members? Last question is, which learning management system, that is LMS, is more suitable for distance, virtual education or e-learning in higher educational institutions? So answer these questions, follow the given links and explore more about the concept of management. Thank you, class.